Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the October 23rd, 2018 meeting of that trust, and I'd recognize the motion to that effect.
Move approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Next, we have the consent docket. Would recognize a motion to approve those items subject to individual consideration.
Motion to approve subject to individual consideration. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions about items for individual consideration?
No.
Seeing none, we vote approved. We have a concurrence docket of 3 items. Also recognize a motion to approve those subject to individual consideration.
Move the items.
Is there moved and seconded? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. Approved. There's an item for individual consideration, which is an amended storage contract transfer agreement with the City of Oklahoma City and the State of Oklahoma Water Resources Board for Sardis Lake storage. Reimbursement to the State of Oklahoma for operations and maintenance costs, $12,500,000, and acknowledged deposit of $2.5 million into Atoka and Sardis Conservation Projects Fund. Who wants to handle this? Yes, sir.
If you would, Mr. Chairman, trustees, the amendment to the storage contract is a follow-up to the settlement agreement and the Settlement Act. And what it does is it clarifies the obligations of the Water Trust as it relates to the storage capacities in Sardis Lake. Sardis Lake is divided into a present storage and a future storage, and there were some issues during the settlement and Settlement Act as to the responsibilities for those, and as a result of the cooperation and the decisions that were made with regard to the use of water from Sardis, it does not appear that we will ever reach into the future storage capacity, and as such there would not be any repayment due to the U.S. Government Corps of Engineers for that purpose. However, we need to have a sign-off on that issue by the Corps of Engineers, and this was to clarify those issues to match both the Settlement Act and the Settlement Agreement. And so it's already been signed off on by the Oklahoma Water Resources Board and the City Council approval this morning, and with the Trust approval, we will send it on to the Corps of Engineers for their final approval, which would result in the subsequent administrative transfer of the rights to storage in Lake Sardis.
Very good. Thank you. Are there questions? If not, I recognize a motion for approval. It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded.
Sure. Ask a couple questions. This is just substantially cleanup work to bring the Corps in alignment with the settlement agreement.
That is correct.
And to finally address an item that we've dealt with all the way through negotiations, which is the future years.
That is correct.
Okay. Anything else other than that?
No, I just added in a provision into the item today to acknowledge that there was a transfer of the $2.5 million per the settlement agreement from what was formerly the obligation under the storage agreement to the settlement agreement, and just so that you could track that transfer.
Because that was negotiated through the process.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? We'll vote. Approved. Are there any items from trustees?
Just want to thank the Trust for the improvements to Stars and the facility improvements to Stars and Stripes Park. Thank you.
You're welcome. General Manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of things. First of all, last week I attended a conference in Toronto, the World Water Conference. They invited Oklahoma City to come and talk about how we handle adverse weather conditions and how we manage through the potential impacts of climate change. So I showed them a kind of a pictorial of the triggers of all of the lakes that were either built or purchased for storage rights, how the evolution of our water supply went through in alignment with most of the drought periods that have been recorded, significant drought periods that have been recorded here in central Oklahoma. And then related to our resiliency component here in the way we manage our system, I showed a map of the tornadoes that have impacted central Oklahoma over the last several decades. And they were pretty astonished when they saw that. It looks like a bunch of spaghetti. And they were colored according to strength. And they were very astonished at the number of very powerful tornadoes that have come through. And then I explained to them how we're hardening our system, we're replacing aging infrastructure, we're building generators, we're interconnecting our facilities, and so on and so forth. And they were all pretty impressed with that dynamic, and they invited me to have several conversations after my presentation. So they were pretty impressed with all the things that Oklahoma City's doing. So we may be in the middle of the United States, kind of out away from everybody, but folks are starting to take notice at what we do and how we do it. So that's a good thing. Secondly, I wanted to give you all an update on the procurement of the Toka Pipeline pipe. We pre-qualified the pipe suppliers. We put out a solicitation for proposals, an RFP. We have had a number of questions from the pipe suppliers. We've answered those questions, most of those questions. We have till tomorrow, close of business, to finish with those answers. The Q&A period will end then, and then we've given them till the 28th of November to provide a proposal. Afterwards, we have the selection committee scheduled to perform site visits to verify what they said in the proposals is in fact correct. And then we will proceed on with the actual evaluation and ranking of the vendors, and then the recommendation to you all for consideration. That should be sometime in December. So that's kind of where we are right now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Any questions? Seeing none, we are adjourned.